Fight fans, welcome to the PBC podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome everyone to the PBC podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you guys, all of you, for tuning in, both old listeners and you. We all know why you're here. We all know what you want to talk about. Fury versus Wilder 3, Saturday night at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, live on pay-per-view, and you know we're going to dig into it. Plus, we've got respected trainer Stephen Breadman Edwards joining us, and he's got some great insight on Saturday's card, really on boxing in general. But before we get into all things Fury Wilder 3, Mike, I'm sure you saw the news on the corruption found in amateur boxing. Recent investigation into IBA and Olympic boxing, specifically the 2016 Olympics, found damning evidence of, quote, corruption, bribery, and the manipulation of sporting results. Truthfully, I can't say I'm surprised.
No, I'm not surprised either. One of my first thoughts went back to the 70s and 80s when Olympic boxing was just wonderful. You know, that era produced guys like Sugar Ray Leonard, the Spinks brothers, Evander Holyfield, and I can go on and on and on. Now we find out that in 2016, and actually possibly earlier, it became like a filthy, smelly cesspool of corruption. I mean, it's just disgusting. I mean, we could assume that guys who deserve victories and maybe medals in the Olympics had them stolen by greedy referees and or judges. That just makes me sick. The greed is just disgusting. The good news to me is that this investigation exposed the mess, and hopefully the powers that be can take steps to make sure that the amateur side of the sport is clean. I also hope it's not too late. The IOC reportedly won't say whether boxing will even be included in the 2024 Games in Paris. So that would be the final kick in the gut.
Yeah, and that would truly hurt the sport. I mean, we've been seeing this for a long time. I remember reading about Roy Jones at the 88 Olympics, Mayweather in the 96 Olympics. So I've always had little trust for the process. But, boxing missing out on the Olympics, that would be a huge blow to the sport. But enough about the amateurs. Like I said, we all know why you're here. So let's jump right into the PBC fight of the week. Fight fans, it's finally here. Saturday night is going to be epic. The trilogy bout between WBC heavyweight champion Tyson Fury and former longtime champ Deontay Wilder. T-Mobile Arena, live on ESPN Plus and Fox Sports pay-per-view. It began in December 2018 when Wilder and Fury fought to a split decision draw. And now we get the third match. Last February 2020, Fury stopped Wilder in 7 rounds. They're going to do it again, and we're going to start off with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Fury still unbeaten, 30-0-1 with 21 knockouts. Wilder 42-1-1 with 41 knockouts. Fury's 4-0-1 in his last 5, the draw against Wilder. Wilder's 3-1-1 with 3 knockouts. As you mentioned, the last fight for both guys was the February 22nd bout, in which Fury stopped Wilder in 7 rounds. Fury has a 68% knockout percentage, Wilder 93%, one of the best of all time. Fury's actually got more rounds, 193, even though he's got fewer fights. That's because of Wilder's power, obviously. Wilder has 150 rounds. Fury's 33, Wilder 35. They both turned pro in 2008. Actually, Wilder turned pro just a couple weeks before Fury did, so it's interesting how things work out. They both fight from an orthodox stance. They're both really tall. Fury's 6'9", Wilder 6'7", 85-inch reach for Fury, 83 for Wilder. Fury is from Manchester, England. Deontay Wilder is from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Let's get into some key questions here, Mike, starting with the champ, Tyson Fury. What does Fury have to do to repeat his performance of the second fight?
Well, maybe this is obvious, but I would say more of the same. The key to Fury's victory in their second fight was that he prevented Wilder from getting shots off by staying in his face. I mean, that was pretty much the key to everything. Wilder needs room to throw that right hand. He just didn't have it. I think Fury needs to do that again. Now, I'm convinced that Wilder is going to be better prepared. He's going to do whatever it takes not to tangle with Fury inside. Fury needs to just follow his jab inside and bull Wilder into the ropes as he did in the second fight. If he can do that, he's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the aggressive tactic worked really, really well against the puncher in Deontay Wilder. What can Wilder do to turn the tables?
Well, this seems obvious to me too, is just get space to do his thing. He can't let Fury use his size advantage and aggression to smother him like he did the last time. He needs to use his feet to move out of the way and to establish the range that's ideal for him, before he's nose to nose with Fury. He can also accomplish that by using his jab when Fury gets inside. That's another option. Wilder could also tie him up when they're in close instead of taking punches if he can until the referee breaks them up. And there'll be times when he's going to have to fight inside. I don't think there's any way around that. The bottom line though for me is I think he's going to be better prepared this time. No surprises. He's going to have a plan.
Yeah, and I think that jab that you mentioned is going to be so key, as well as using his speed and his quickness to be able to, get in and land his shots. Fury has super long arms, which I think is one of his huge advantages, really, against every single heavyweight boxer. Now, Deontay Wilder has a new lead trainer in Malik Scott. What impact do you think that will have?
Well, it feels right from the outside, but I think it's hard to say until we see the fight. In other words, the proof will be in the pudding, if you will. I'll say this, though. Wilder and Scott seem to be in sync, which is a good thing. And Wilder obviously has complete trust in Scott, who he's known for a long time. That's also a big positive. I have no doubt whatsoever that they're on the same page. Again, though, we'll see. Scott needs to come up with the right adjustments to turn the tables on Fury, which isn't an easy assignment. I do believe Scott knows his stuff, though. I do think Wilder will be better prepared.
Yeah, I think so too. I love the chemistry that they have and the trust and the fact that they've been longtime friends. And it seems like Wilder's really been receptive to what Malik has been teaching him. However, that was a huge, huge loss, and to make such a change at this late stage in his career, do you think he's had enough time to make the necessary adjustments?
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe it as like a big change. I think adjustments is the right word. And I think you adjust from one fight to another a lot of times. And he will have had plenty of time to do that. There's no question. The last fight took place 19 plus months ago. I think the real question is whether it would have been wise to take an interim fight before jumping back into the ring with Fury, because again, that was a bad loss. Wilder probably would have benefited from that, but then there would be no guarantees that he'd ever get another shot at Fury. So I think it made sense to take an immediate rematch. Plus, I think the fact that Wilder wants a direct rematch is an indication of his confidence. I think he really believes he's going to win.
Now, do you think he's been able to fully overcome the emotional aspects of losing?
That's another thing we'll see in the ring. I kind of think so, yes, but we'll see that in the ring. I think the loss, particularly the way he lost, had to take an emotional toll on him. Remember, he was undefeated at the time, and he held the title for, five years. Some guys can bounce back from something like that. Some guys have trouble bouncing back. We're going to find out how tough Wilder is mentally when the opening bell rings, on Saturday. I'll add this. I believe he is mentally tough. I believe he has that dog in him, as we discussed last week. Remember, he was getting his butt kicked in the last fight, and he wanted to continue. He did not want to quit in that fight.
Right.
That, to me, that says something about him.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think he's got the right support system around him, people like Malik Scott and JD's and so forth. So I think he's overcome that. What about the champ, Tyson Fury? Could there be any complacency coming from him?
Possibly. He's already been there and done that, if you know what I mean. I think he'll be prepared physically and mentally for this fight. I really do. But I also believe it will have been harder for him to get up for this fight than the last two. And if you're not 100% up for a fight, particularly one as dangerous as this one, that could lead to trouble. I think he's a pro. I think he's going to be ready, but I think that could be a factor in the fight.
Yeah, I think so as well. However, I do think that the recent time following COVID has helped him. Listening to his conference call last week, it sounds like he's had a really good camp, a grueling camp, and really put in the necessary work and made the sacrifices in order to get ready for this fight. What's next for the winner of Saturday night?
Well, I can say what I hope would the fighter I hope they would fight next would be Alexander Usyk, because I just personally want to see a undisputed champion. But who knows? I mean, I don't know. Usyk has to, obviously, Usyk first has to fight and beat Joshua again. So I think the winner of this fight's going to be in sort of a waiting game, isn't he? Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on who wins the Usyk Joshua rematch, assuming that takes place. I mean, otherwise, then you're going to go down a notch. There's other guys to fight. Andy Ruiz, maybe the winner of Kovnatsky and Helenius and their rematch. I mean, guys like that. I think that's what you're looking at.
Yeah. Although, I remember so many people, fans and media, calling for Wilder to step aside so we could see a unification. So I'm calling for Anthony Joshua to step aside and allow for an undisputed match between Usyk and the winner on Saturday night. That'd be nice to see, but probably wishful thinking. Let's get a little bit more granular with it and break down these fighters by category. We'll assign each fighter a rating from 1 to 5 in 10 categories, tally it up, and then we'll see who has the biggest score at the end. We're going to start with amateur foundation. What do you got?
Well, I gave both guys a 3. They reportedly both had about 35 amateur fights, which actually isn't very many for most top fighters. If anyone would have had an edge, maybe it's Wilder because he fought in the Olympics. But I really think it's sort of a push. Neither guy really had an extensive amateur career.
Yeah, neither guy did have an extensive amateur career. I gave Fury a 3. I gave Wilder a 4, simply because he has that Olympic experience, and not only has Olympic experience, but won a bronze medal in the Olympics. What about skill set?
Well, I give Fury a 5, and I'm going to give Wilder a 4. I think that part of Wilder is a little bit underrated. Fury has always been known for his boxing ability and his athleticism. For a guy who's 6'9", the things he could do for a guy that height, that size is remarkable to me. Wilder is known for his power, not his skill set. I think he's a better boxer than many give him credit for. I went back and forth between 3 and 4, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I think you have to have a certain set of skills to land the big shots that he lands consistently. His delivery system is really efficient. He didn't land it only in a couple fights.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that takes a high ring IQ, and to be able to do it consistently shows that he knows what he's doing in there. I gave Wilder a 4. I gave Fury the edge here, a 5. Just an exceptional boxer, Tyson Fury is, particularly at that height and weight. What about speed and athleticism?
Well, I gave them both a 4. I don't think either guy's like blazing quick, but how could you be blazing quick at that height? They're just too tall to be that fast. I actually think they're close in this category, obviously, by my score. As I said, Fury is very athletic for a man his size, but so is Wilder when he actually moves his feet. I think we're going to really see how athletic he is in this fight, or we might see that. As he did when he outpointed Berman Stavern to win his title. Right. He decided to box in that fight, and he boxed well. And while they don't have blazing speed, I think for their size, they are pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as I gave them both a 5. Actually, I think at that height, it's ridiculous how athletic these guys are. Fury's so light on his feet. Wilder's too when he chooses to be, and Wilder's got pretty fast hands, as does Fury. I think these are two of the more athletic guys in the division. Let's go to punching power. What you got?
So this was obvious to me. Wilder gets a 5. I was going back and forth between 3 and 4 with Fury. I gave him a 4, largely because of the last fight. This is where Wilder shines. I mean, it's hard to top 41 knockouts in 44 fights. He, without question, is one of the biggest punchers in the history of the sport. Fury isn't known for his power, but he demonstrated in the last fight between these two guys that his shots can be heavy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I gave Wilder a 5, Fury a 4. Wilder, no question, I'd give a 6 in this category if I could. And Fury, I think, whose powers is underrated, 6'9", 260 plus. He hits fairly hard.
Sure he does.
What about physical strength?
Well, I had to give Fury at least a slight edge here because of just the weight. He outweighed Wilder by 40 pounds, I think, in the last fight. So I gave Fury a 5. Wilder a 4. I mean, I'm not sure there's a stronger guy in boxing than Fury. Yeah, there might be. A lot of those guys are gigantic. I think Fury's strength is simply a product of his size. 6'9". He was 273 for their last fight. The guy's just massive. Wilder isn't a big heavyweight in terms of his weight, but he's a strong man. I think his punching power is an indication of that.
Yeah, no question. I gave Fury a 5, Wilder a 4 here as well. Fury knows how to use Wilder's. I think is physically strong, but Fury again at 260, I think, and knows how to use his weight, so knows how to lean on you, wear you down, and all those great tactics. So I give him the edge here. What about versatility?
So I gave Fury a 5, and Wilder I was going back and forth 3 and 4. I decided to go with 3 with this, only because he's been so reliant on that right hand, and then if it doesn't land, he's got problems. That doesn't mean I don't think he can box, because again, he showed against Deverne that he can, and I think he might show in this fight that he can. I think Fury showed in the rematch with Wilder that he could win in more than one way. He always outboxed his opponents, as he did against Vladimir Klitschko, but he changed styles for the second Wilder fight and produced like remarkable results. I mean, who does that? Again, Wilder can box. He did it against Deverne, but the key to his success has been that big right hand. And you know what? It's been successful 90% of the time, so why not?
Yeah, no question. Versatility, I've got Fury at 5, Wilder at 4. Same reasons as you. What about durability?
Yeah, I didn't really know where to go with this one, really. I gave them both a 4. I think Fury gave us a look at his durability when he got up from those knockdowns against Wilder in their first fight. I think most opponents would have stayed on the canvas. I can't be certain of that, but it seems to me they would have. And Wilder has battled through some adversity. I'm thinking of the first Luis Ortiz fight, and even the second fight with Fury. As I mentioned earlier, he wanted to continue fighting. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, I gave both a 5 here. I think that neither guy has been knocked out on their back. I think Fury showed his mettle against Otto Ali. That was a very, very tough fight. And
That's right.
You mentioned the Ortiz fight for Deontay Wilder, who's also shown that he carries his power late into fights. What about experience?
Well, I gave them both the same score. I thought about giving them 5, but then I thought, they really didn't have much of an amateur career, the bronze medal aside. So I gave both guys a 4. Wilder has more pro fights, and again, they had roughly the same number of amateur fights, but I think they're in a similar place in their careers. Although I did mention earlier that Fury's got more pro rounds, but still, it's roughly a push. Both guys have plenty of experience in big fights, meaning neither is going to be overwhelmed by the moment. They're 2 veteran guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I give them both a 5 in that category because of their experience in the big fights. Here's an interesting category. What about freshness?
Yeah, I wasn't sure where to go with this either. I gave both guys a 4. I think they're both fresh fighters. Fury has never taken a lot of punches because he's so good defensively. I just wonder a little bit about the coronavirus he had. I assume he's back 100%, but who knows? I never know what to think about that. Wilder did take a pounding in that last fight, but he's had a long time now to heal physically. I think he'll be absolutely fine in that department going into this fight. So I think both guys are fresh.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that neither guy's taking too much punishment, although Wilder is older and did take a bit of quite a few shots in that last fight. How about their respective corners?
Okay, I gave both guys a 4 again. I think Fury and Sugar Hill Stewart have had a good marriage based on what we saw in the second fight with Wilder. They seem to be good together, and we could see the chemistry Wilder has with Malik Scott. Neither Stewart nor Scott has a ton of experience as head trainers, but both guys obviously know their stuff, though. I really believe that. I think they just need some more fights to prove it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I gave both guys a 4 as well. This is Sugar Hill's only his second fight with Fury, and this obviously Malik Scott's first. It's really a to be determined sort of category. So in my totals, I had Fury up by 1, 45-44. All right, let's tally it up. Who do you have winning our fighter categories list?
I had Fury 42-39 advantage.
Interesting. I've got Fury 45-44, which is pretty close, and that makes sense because truthfully, this fight is as good as it gets. The 2 best heavyweights in the world, in my opinion. Mike, moment of truth. Who are you picking?
Okay. Once again, I truly believe that Wilder will be more competitive in this fight than he was in the last one. But the key question is whether it will be enough to actually win the fight. He will have had time to make adjustments designed to create opportunities for him to land his right hand and get out of harm's way, which he couldn't do in the last fight. And don't forget, with Wilder, this is obviously crucially important. All it really takes is one right hand to end the fight in his favor. Fury said as much. It was either yesterday or today. He said he knows how dangerous Wilder is. I mean, he might have been trying to sell the fight to some degree, but I think he was serious. and we all know that. All that said, I still think that Fury is the bigger, better fighter who already demonstrated his dominance in their second fight. Yes, Wilder will have had time to make adjustments, but Fury also will have had time to work on his tactics, to adjust to the adjustments he expects from Wilder, if you will. I don't know whether this fight will look exactly like the first one, but I think Fury will find a way to get it done again. This one, I have a feeling this time by decision. He just has to avoid that ominous right hand of Wilder's, which is always lurking, and which just makes this one of the reasons that this fight is so fascinating.
Well, I'm playing with house money right now with my sizable 3-game lead. So I'm going with Deontay Wilder by late round TKO. These guys have been out for so long that I could see an early ending. Maybe, someone getting hit with something they didn't expect. But I foresee things settling down, Fury finding his rhythm, and Wilder being given enough time to operate and search for that opening. I think the key for Deontay will be to go to the body and to attack every body part that Fury has. I mean, the legs, not the legs. Definitely don't attack the legs. But take out the legs. Hit him on the arms. The elbows, the chest, the ribs, the liver, the solar plexus. Anywhere he can touch Fury, I think he should try and do that, and not really worry about the big right hand, because it'll come. And if he can break Fury down, wear him down, because Fury, despite his good defense, does have some ponderous moments, I think he'll be able to create an opportunity to land that right hand and put Tyson Fury away. Wilder obviously is a huge underdog here, but why not, Mike? We're going to find out in a few days. Can't wait. But let's move on to the undercard, and what a good one it is. Got a battle of rising undefeated heavyweights, Efe Ajagba versus Frank Sanchez. Mike, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I think it's an interesting matchup style-wise. Ajagba being a power puncher and Sanchez more of a boxer, although he's tried to be more aggressive in recent fights. Another thing I like is that both guys are taking a tremendous risk. The winner is going to take a significant step toward a title shot. I don't know how close that is, but it's a nice step in that direction. The loser could have a tougher time getting there. This is how boxing should be: big risks and big rewards.
Yeah, I love the matchup, of undefeated heavyweights trying to come up, but also the style matchup between these two guys. I mean, one's more of a boxer, one is more of a puncher. What's your prediction?
Tough one. I think this is essentially 50-50. My gut tells me that Sanchez is more of a thoroughbred, meaning he's a better boxer and a better athlete. If he is content to box, doesn't try to be too aggressive, I think he might win a clear decision. If he tries to mix it up with Ajagba, or is forced to mix it up by Ajagba, he could be in trouble. I think Sanchez wins a decision.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, just because I tend to lean toward the boxer typically, at least the first time facing each other. Never mind what I said about Wilder Fury. But I think it's a dangerous fight. Ajagba definitely has the power, and Sanchez is a smaller heavyweight, making it even more dangerous. But I really like the skills he's shown this far, so I'm going with him as well. Also on the undercard, we've got the rematch between Robert Helenius and Adam Konofsky. The two first met in March 2020. Helenius stunned everybody, stopping Konofsky in 4. Mike, what's your take on this rematch?
Well, as I've said, I love this matchup. The first fight was entertaining and dramatic as hell, with the underdog pulling off a knockout upset. That's about as fun as it gets for fans, unless you're a fan of Kovnatsky, I guess. And I see no reason why the second fight also won't be fun to watch. These guys aren't going to suddenly become careful technicians. That's not who they are. In other words, just don't blink in this fight. Somebody's going to get knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. And they're both talking about a knockout. We had them both on the podcast, and Helenius said he doesn't, see it being any different than the first fight, and Konofsky says he's out to get his. What's your pick for this one?
So I do believe that Kovnatsky will be less reckless, as he said he would be, which probably led to his demise, or contributed to his demise in the first fight. That doesn't mean he won't fight aggressively, though. He will, and so will Helenius. So it might come down to whoever lands the first big punch, which is what the first fight came down to. I'm going to predict that this is kind of a gut feeling, and I think I have a pretty good idea where Helenius is at. I'm going to predict that Helenius is the one who's going to land that punch. I think he's going to stop Kovnatsky again, although I won't be surprised at all if the opposite happens, because it's a good fight.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one too. I like Helenius simply because he was able to land that right hand consistently throughout the first fight, and so I expect him to do it again. Now, quick note about the other fights on the card. Undefeated Jared Anderson will kick off the pay-per-view opener, but we also have action on FS1, including the return of Julian J-Rock Williams. Speaking of Williams, it's time to bring in our guest this week, who was his longtime trainer. He also trains Karan Davis and Cassius Chaney, among others. One of the brightest minds in the sport. Those who check out his daily bread mailbag on boxingscene.com can attest to that. Trainer Stephen Breadman Edwards. Breadman, first things first, how are you and your family doing?
Everybody's good, man. Everybody's good and blessed.
That's good to hear, man. I saw you in the corner of the undefeated heavyweight Cassius Chaney in his most recent win over Shondell Winters. Can you assess Chaney's performance for us?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I give him about a 7. He can be a lot better. He has a lot untapped potential. That was his first time going 10 rounds. So always with heavyweights, they always, they think about the stamina issues. But he's a really talented kid, and I really, really enjoy training him. I think he has a high upside.
What do you have planned for him next? Do you know?
He's supposed to be fighting actually on Triller November the 9th versus George Arias.
There you go.
So he's in camp right now. I mean, I have to leave him for a couple of days to go out Vegas, but he's in camp right now. We already started training.
Oh.
Very good. Speaking of heavyweights, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for Saturday night's main event?
Oh man, I was at the first one. We fought on that undercard. I'm very excited. I think it's a great matchup. Two colorful personalities, and it's big heavyweight fights. They're just so significant historically. So it's great to it's always good for boxing.
Definitely. Now, you said you were at the first fight. In your opinion, what changed between Wilder Fury 1 and Wilder Fury 2?
I think Wilder got caught off guard with Fury's tactics, where he was kind of like boxing and being cute in the first fight. In the second fight, he kind of stepped to Wilder. He didn't let him step into any of his punches. He was pushing him back with a double jab, and he caught Wilder off guard with his tactics. He was very, very aggressive. Even though Fury's a big guy, he's more of a boxer, like a cute fighter. And I don't think that Wilder expected that. This is one of the reasons why I think that the third fight will be more competitive, because you can't shock somebody with tactics more than once with those tactics anyway. So I think that Wilder now will be prepared mentally and tactically for, if Fury is aggressive like he was in the first fight. in the rematch.
What did you make of Wilder's change in trainers and Malik Scott, manning the lead role now?
I don't know what happened with him and Mark Breland. I read some of the, nasty things that was said. I don't want to comment on that because I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
But I think Malik Scott is a fellow Philadelphian. He's a very knowledgeable guy. I think he has Wilder really, really engaged, and I think he's going to do well. I think they're on to something. The number one thing that trainers and a fighter has to have is chemistry. If you're around somebody enough, you start talking like them, you start acting like them, you start believing in the things that they're doing. And I think Malik Scott has Wilder's interest peaked. I think that he really, really has gotten through to Wilder, and I think that they're on to something, and I expect a very competitive fight.
Breadman, you mentioned that he will have the opportunity to make adjustments because he won't be surprised again. So what would he have to do if Fury used the same tactics?
He has to have an escape route. Fury was kind of like bulldogging him. He was just like rough boxing him, throwing him up against the ropes, throwing him around. Deontay has to figure out a way to slide out of there safely without being mauled and pushed around. Fury was kind of like ragdolling him. When they stopped the fight, it was because his back was up against the ropes in the corner. He got hit with a big shot. and there was nowhere for him to go, and it kind of stopped the fight. The second thing that Deontay has to figure out is how to jab on even terms with Fury. And the number one thing, he has to, when you're as gifted as a puncher as him, you have your reaction time and your ability to see the shot and release the shot is the most important thing. I've never bought into the fact that he was a one-trick pony, and here's why. Nazim Richardson, God rest his soul, we trained in the gym together for years, and he used to always tell me, he said, man, it's a gift and a curse to be as talented as J-Rock. He said, because he can do so many things in times of crucial moments. When you go in that box, he has a Uzi, he has a revolver, he has a 9mm. So sometimes he may not know what to get out of the box. But when you know what you're grabbing out of that box, then you can process things faster. So Deontay Wilder, for years, everybody knows the right hand is coming. And the reason why they can't stop it is because he processes so fast. He almost catches guys with a sucker punch because that's all he's trying to hit you with. So, and if you notice that when he hits a guy, they look at him like, they have a look on their face like, wow, what happened? And everybody in the stadium knows that the shot's coming, but he's mastered a way to hit you with it by surprise. So hopefully for Deontay, that he doesn't try to do too much. He's knocked out or knocked down every fighter that he's faced. He's only lost one fight. So, landing his money shot is still very important. His reaction time has to be high. His sense of awareness has to be high. Fury kind of stopped him from stepping into his right hand. Deontay has to figure out a way to get that shot off without Fury kind of like smothering and muffling.
Right.
And if he can get that shot off, he can knock Fury out. Fury's a great fighter. He's probably more skilled than Deontay, skill for skill. But that doesn't mean they can beat him every time they fight. Anything can happen in the fight. And in the heavyweight boxing, it only takes one punch. Deontay has to lock in, be very, very, very cognizant of how Fury took away his right hand. And he needs to get off his money shot. He don't need to do too much. He needs to get that shot off. My grandfather used to tell me as a kid, you can't hit the lottery if you don't play. Mm-hmm. And nobody ever landed a punch that they don't throw. Nobody ever hit a pitch that he didn't swing at. So Deontay has to let that shit go, and he could win this fight, man. People think that he's over his head, but I keep saying that Fury fought so good in that second fight. Even by his standards, that was his career best performance. Everybody comes back down to earth. It's like Michael Jordan getting 65 points. As good as he is, he probably won't get 65 points the next night. He'll come back down to earth. So if he comes back down a little bit and Deontay raises his game a little bit, we have a competitive fight. I don't look at this as a blowout at all.
What about emotionally? I guess maybe generally speaking, how difficult is it for a fighter to overcome a loss like the one Wilder suffered? I mean, obviously it was pretty bad.
It's tough. It's embarrassing with social media. Fighters make excuses. They say all kinds of stuff. I'm not saying Deontay makes excuses because I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of what goes on in this camp. But just in general, fighters make excuses. They blame everybody for what happened. It's definitely tough, but it's how you compartmentalize it. Is what it shows your willpower and your mental strength. Can you get over it? I recommend that all fighters stay off social media before their fights, because the fans and the media, they say some nasty things, and that stuff seeps into your soul, and it accesses your conscience. The last thing you want to hear is bad things being said about you. So, I think it's tough, but I actually think that Deontay is over it. As weird as it may sound, I think he's like a strong-willed guy. I think he's a little bit crazy. I think he's, very competitive. And I think that Malik Scott has really got him dialed in. I think he's okay mentally. There's a lot of things that, like when fighters come up with excuses, I don't really get down on them because that's how they compartmentalize a loss. You know, it's hard for them to say, I was the best I ever was. I had the best camp I could possibly have, and I still lost. You know what I mean? So that's hard for a fighter to say. So if they come up with excuses, it's their way of compartmentalizing losses. So I think that I actually think that Deontay has more motivation than Tyson does, because Tyson already beat Deontay and beat him decisively. And at this stage of your life, when you're already rich and you already have more money than you're ever going to spend, you need motivation. And I'm telling you that revenge is a hell of a motivation. Deontay was embarrassed. Tyson took away his undefeated record. He knocked him out. He took his title. Deontay has a lot of motivation. You know, can Tyson get up for a guy who he already dominated? You know, so I actually, you know, I look at things differently than a lot of people, you know, and dealing with fighters for a very long time, you know, it's tough to get up early in the morning when you're rich. And the motivation that Deontay has for the embarrassment of that loss, I think is actually, you know, allow him to have a really, really good training camp. So, you know, I think mentally, you know, who knows, he could be gun shy, but it just doesn't seem like his personality to be a gun shy fighter. I think that, you know, he got stopped, but he was stopped on his feet. So I think he'll be fine mentally. You know, he's just going to have to overcome Tyson Fury's skill set, in my opinion.
Now, you said that you were going to make a fight pick this week, I think. So I don't know if you're waiting for the next mailbag or what, but I got to ask, what's your prediction, or what can you tell us as far as what you see on Saturday night?
You know, I'm going to be out there, so I kind of wanted to wait till I see the guys at the weigh-in and stuff like that, you know, to make a prediction. But honestly, you know, I'm honored to be on the show. You guys asking me. I have a gut feeling that Deontay's going to win the fight. I don't even know why, because Fury has proven to have a higher skill set. I'm a skilled guy, but I just don't know why. It's something that's telling me it's almost like that he's due. Like, it's hard to be in the ring with somebody that's such a gifted puncher for this many rounds and not get clipped by him, you know. And they've boxed, what was it, 20 rounds already. He has knocked Fury down a couple of times, but he hasn't got him with the home run yet. And, you know, that's just a long time to be in the ring with a guy that's such a gifted puncher. So I think that, you know, I don't know if this is an official prediction, but I have a gut feeling that Deontay is going to be just down on points and just hit him with a right hand, and that's going to be that.
Wow.
I don't even know why, man. It's just a weird feeling, you know, because looking at the fights, like I said, I was at the first fight, and the rounds that Deontay didn't knock him down there, Fury was just outboxing him. The second fight, he just dominated him. But it's just something that tells me that he's going to be locked in. He's going to land his right hand.
Oh, man.
So we'll see.
We still can't wait.
I know, man. It's weird. It's weird.
Now, the entire card is great. I mean, also on the card, F.A. Jagba and Frank Sanchez throw down in a battle of unbeaten heavyweights. Give us your thoughts on that fight.
You know what, man? That's a really good fight. I wouldn't be surprised if we seen the draw of that fight. That's a really evenly matched fight. It's a good fight. That's all I got to say. That's a really, really good fight.
What about Helenius and Kanaki, the rematch? How do you see that playing out?
I was at that fight. I had a kid on that undercard. I'll say Kalinaki probably wins the decision, you know, but he got taken out to the woodshed in that fight. So Helenius is going to be very confident, but I think that Kalinaki should probably win a decision.
There's another heavyweight. Jared Anderson's going to kick off the pay-per-view. What's your take on him? He's
good, man. He's a young kid, but he's good. I don't think he's too small. I think his size is just right. I think he's really talented. He's going to be a major player in the division.
Okay, so
he's really, really good. I like him. I like him to win his fight by unanimous decision.
Yeah, he's impressive. A lot of these guys are impressive, which leads me to my next question. So of all the heavyweights that we just mentioned, besides the Fury and Wilder. Who do you think has the brightest future?
On this card or just in general?
Well, the guys that we just mentioned, Ajagba, Sanchez.
Okay. You know, Ajagba is a guy that I can't really figure out. I can't figure out how much upside he has. I could tell he's a puncher, but I haven't seen enough layers to his game. And he's not as, like, he's a big right-hand puncher, but he's not as fast and athletic as Wilder. Sanchez is really, really good, and I think he has a great trainer, but I don't know what his upside is either. I think he's, he may be a little small for heavyweight. So I would say that Jared Anderson has the biggest upside. I think he's like 20, 21 years old.
Sure.
And I think he has the biggest upside. He can fight. He does some good stuff. He's very relaxed in the ring. He's a good fighter.
So also former unified 154-pound champ Julian Williams will also be on the card. You trained Williams for much of his career. Can you tell us why you two split and what's the status of your relationship now?
Well, guess what? I'm gonna break some news to you guys.
Okay.
He last month we talked that we worked out our differences, so I'll be training him again.
Oh, fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So nobody really knows that. I haven't talked about it publicly, but we worked out our differences, and I seen him one day after the gym. He came up, he talked to me, and we both said our piece, and we working together again. So hopefully, after this fight, we get a title shot and get back to the status that we once had.
That's great news. You just said get back to the status you once had. I mean, J-Rock, one of the best pure boxers in the game, in my opinion. Actually, he can do it all. I mean, inside, outside, you name it. What does he need to do in order to get back on top?
Man, he just gotta just do what I tell him to do. I don't mean to sound, and he just gotta just the same shit that we was doing since he was a kid. Getting up early in the morning, dedicating our lives to boxing. Just being just hardcore boxing guys. Just being all about just being great. And I think he's gonna have it. For that fight, against Rosario, we never talked about it, but he was sick going into the fight. He caught the flu, and it was other things that I felt like distracted him. People pulling him different ways and things like that. And I felt like that everything combined, it just caused for, a really bad performance. It was like everything just leading up at one time. But, catching the flu and cutting weight is a no-go. So I think that, now, Julian has enough money to never box again and not miss a meal. So now he wants to fight because, like I told you before, motivation is a big deal. He wants to be a great fighter. He wants to get his belt back. He wants to prove that that was just an aberration. He hasn't even talked about being sick. But I'm telling you, I'm his trainer. I'm his mentor. I was a support group, at that time. He was sick going into the fight. But, he wanted to fight. He wanted to put on for his fans. It was a big payday, and he thought he would be okay. But he wants to prove that that wasn't him out there. And, he said something to me. He said, I want to be the best junior middleweight of this era. And after this fight, whether it's Charlo, Castano, I'll fight either one of them, and I'll fight the other one after that. So, he's with it. This camp was caught on short notice with the camp, but he's a kid that peaks out pretty soon. So we had about 5 weeks, which was enough time. So he's good. He's looking sharp in camp. Everything's good. We're gonna be fighting at 157 pounds. I didn't want to take him down to 154 because he hadn't made weight in so long. But he looks good. He's feeling good. Our chemistry, it still is what it is. I brought him up, so it's things that we're gonna do that nobody could teach him, and and he's gonna know certain things that I say, and I'm gonna know certain things that he does. I could tell by his body language things that we want to do. So he's really attentive this camp, He hasn't. We haven't had any. There's been no friction. We're both two strong-headed, strong-willed guys. But he has to realize I'm the trainer. He's the fighter. I'm the trainer. So we're both strong-willed guys. We both have our positions on the team. So he respects me. I respect him. And I think he's gonna be just fine. I'm excited to prove, that he is everything that I said he was for the last decade. So I'm really excited about getting out there. It's not something I talked about publicly. I just wanted to just train and not have to deal with the questions and things. But I knew it was coming up, so I just, people seeing us in the gym and sparring partners come in. It's like, oh wow, shit, So it's that kind of thing. But it's been all good. We haven't had any issues, and we'll see. I just can't wait for him to get back to where he was, and I'm really looking forward to fighting, Castano, Charlo, or Tim Tszyu, if that's available for a vacant title. And
I like it.
I'm not gonna play around with it. I'm telling you right now, we going right to the big dogs. And I already told him, all you need is one comeback fight, and that's it. Yeah. We not fucking around, man. We going straight to it. I don't want to play no games. Let's fight. I'm that type of trainer. So if you ain't got big balls and you don't want to fight, I'm not the guy for you. And he feel like that, So, he's with it, and that's just that. So we got to get Vladimir Hernandez out of the way. We've had some really good southpaw sparring. He's done a lot of rounds, and he's looking good. Each week he's getting progressively better. The weight's settling in. I think he's about 90% of what he was for the herd camps, surrounding herd camps, because I haven't been with him in over a year and a half. But by the next camp, he'll be back to where he needs to be. He's well rested.
Now, you have another fighter, Karan shut down Davis, who fought last month and won a surprisingly close decision over Martez McGregor. I remember the first time I saw Davis, actually, which was just a few fights into his career, and I was so blown away by his talent that I actually remember calling you and asking you, who is this guy? Because he fights nothing like J-Rock, but he's,
Oh, man, really? I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was back when I was with
Yeah, man, that was a tough fight. Karan is really good, man. It kind of sucks for him that, he's been in the shadow of Julian, and, he hasn't always, he's been a little bit of a knucklehead outside the ring sometimes with his weight and things like that. But, man, Karan can fight, bro. I've had him in camp with Demetrius Andre, Erickson Lubin, Erslan De Lara, Adrian Broner, obviously Julian Williams, Triple G, Danny Jacobs, and now he's currently in camp with Terrence Crawford, and he can really fight.
What do you make of his up and down performances? It seems like one day he looks like a budding star, but then the next fight, what do you attribute that to?
In fairness to him, I'm not an excuse maker. In fairness to him, for this guy, we had 2 weeks to train. That wasn't fair to him. I took the fight on 2 weeks' notice because there's just there's such a scarcity of fights. That if you don't take this kind of fight just to stay busy, then you mess around and be off for a freaking year. And it's not fair to him coming off of the Darrell performance. For Darrell, we were getting ready for other fights, so we had plenty of time. We took this fight on 17 days notice. That's why it was at 170. Karan's really a 60-pounder, so I'll take that. That's on me. I told him to take the fight. I told him, look, just go ahead and take the fight and pay your rent up for the rest of the year. And, he just really, he's the kind of kid that gets heavy in between fights. And, we had to cut a lot of weight in 2 weeks. And he was fine in the fight for the first 4 rounds. Kid hit him with an elbow, and the elbow hit him in his eye, went through his nose bone. He hit him right in the sinuses. I don't know if you guys watched the fight, but he hit him with a nasty elbow, and it threw Karan off. I'm not my fighters don't complain to the referee and try to get out of fights and get all that kind of stuff. But he was hurt by the elbow. It messed him up, so I kind of knew that it kind of it took something out of him. It was a vicious shot, man. I mean, it went right up through his nose and hit him in his eye. That's why the guy got the 2 points deducted, so, I think that along with cutting the weight, we noticed the fight was at 170 pounds. Karan shouldn't be fighting that heavy. But we took the fight on short notice. And I think that he deserves better than that to have to take a fight like that. But, we can't get certain guys in the ring. I was interested in the fight with him and Duranchenko, but that hasn't grown any legs. One of the top guys, one of the top contenders at 160 pounds, that hasn't grown any legs. I only took the Durrell fight because, not sounding cocky, I just knew that he could beat Durrell. I knew he could be competitive with Durrell. I've watched Durrell, and Durrell is an excellent fighter, but the way his style is and the way he fights, he kind of needs you right in front of him to do damage. He's really good technically sound puncher, but if you give him some movements and put some tricks in your bag, then he doesn't really look like $1 million. And I noticed that he doesn't really stop guys. If he don't stop you early, he really don't stop you. So I was confident that Karan could hold his own with Durrell. And I knew that was an opportunity that we wouldn't get again. And more importantly, in this day and age, fighters, man, they all walk around too heavy. So it just gave us some extra advantage to not have to cut all the way down to 160. So he had a lot of calories to burn, and, he was feeling fresh. And, I just knew that the fight would be to our advantage. And I also didn't think that Durrell would take him so seriously because he don't know how good Karan is. People in the gyms know he can fight, and because you've seen him, but a lot of people kind of overlook him. So I just was like, man, this is the perfect fight for us. And it was, I thought that he deserved a decision, but, we got a draw, and that's just that. Yeah. So we'll see, we move on, and hopefully we can make the Duranchenko fight. That's a fight that I think that's a fair fight between both of them at 160 pounds. And hopefully we can make that fight.
I like it.
Yeah, me too. Excuse me. So speaking of super middleweights, we've got a pretty big match next month between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. What did you make of their dust up at the press conference a couple weeks ago?
Some people said it was staged. I don't think it was staged. I could be wrong, though. I don't have any inside information. But I don't think that was the staged dust up. I think that was real.
Yes, so do I.
I don't know, man. People said, well, Canelo hit him with a big shot, so that means Canelo could beat him in the fight. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think I believe that. I think that boxing is bigger than that, to judge guys on a small microcosm in a freaking street fight, Yeah. So I don't really put too much in it. I do think Caleb is standing up to him. From what I can see, I think Canelo thinks Caleb is a punk. I think he thinks that, I think it's kind of ridiculous to say, I just pushed you, so you didn't have to swing. You shouldn't be putting your hands on another grown man. Anything you say to him, somebody kicks me, they can't tell me I can't punch him in the face. You know what I'm saying? They can't say to me, well, I just kicked you, so you got to kick me back the same spot that I kicked. That doesn't make any sense. So I think that that's ridiculous to say, well, I just pushed you. You put your hands on somebody, you take whatever comes with that. So I think that Caleb is standing up to him. He's talking about the drug testing, which is something that a lot of people won't touch. And I think that he's standing up to him. I think that he has a lot of good point, to be honest. And I think, not saying that, Canelo is dirty or anything like that, but, failed drug test or something, is something that needs to be talked about. He's going in the ring with that guy. So I think Caleb is standing up to him. And that's another fight that I expect to be competitive. I saw the odds, and it's plus 550, plus 600. Caleb as the underdog. Man, I think that that's a tough fight for Canelo. Stylistically, he since he had trouble in 2013 and 14 with Trout, Mayweather, and Lara, he hasn't faced anybody that's really can stick and move. So the fact, even though he's been on a career best run, he hasn't faced a pure boxer that's going to stick and move like that. And I think it's a tough fight for him. You know, obviously Canelo's the favorite. Obviously he's a great fighter. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's actually one of my favorite fighters to watch. I think he's a all-time great fighter. But every dog had a day, and nobody's unbeatable. I mean, I think this is I think stylistically the matchup favors Caleb. So we'll see. We'll see if he can put it together.
Do you have a prediction for that fight?
Chat, it's too far away. You know, guys, anything can happen in camps. You know, I hear things that a lot of people don't hear. So I try to wait. You know, last week I waited to the very end to bet on Usyk. You know what I mean? Because I heard some things. So I don't have a prediction, but I think just stylistically, a stick and mover that's 6'1", that can move like Caleb with an educated lead hand. If he just stays boxing and doesn't try to be macho and engage with Canelo, that's a tough fight for Canelo, man. Yeah. Like, I don't know why people just assume he's going to kill Caleb. Canelo didn't stop Cotto. And Cotto's 5'6", 5'7". He was just bouncing and moving. It's a tough fight, man, you know. So we'll see. I know he's improved, but, you know, I think it's a tough fight.
Great stuff. Breadman, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We hope you come back.
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Now ready for the heavyweight world title fight.
No pain, no power.
Wilder, Fury, here we go.
It's no way out. I'ma never back down. Never run, no retreat, I don't know how.
He said he would knock him out.
Like when they fire shots on the first round.
My, oh my.
When they fire shots on the first round.
He puts it down.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. And, of course, this week we're going to keep talking about Fury versus Wilder 3. Specifically, what does Saturday night's outcome mean for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? We'll start with the champ, Mike. What does a victory mean for Tyson Fury?
I think it would solidify his position as the king of the division, particularly after Alexander Usyk's victory over Anthony Joshua. I think there were some out there who had Joshua rated higher than Fury. What about Usyk? He has his defining victory, but I think he'd have to beat Fury or the winner of the Fury-Wilder fight to rise all the way to the top, although we never know how things are going to play out.
Yeah, sure. I think that a Fury win means he's the clear number one, a Hall of Famer. And then we have to start talking about legacy. Obviously, he needs to fight Alexander Usyk. Maybe he defends his titles more. No more hiatuses. Let's find out how great Tyson Fury truly is. What does a victory mean for Deontay Wilder?
Just enormous. That would be the defining victory of his career. I think some people believe that Fury exposed Wilder's limitations in their second fight. He sort of revealed Wilder's ceiling, sort of. If Wilder can win the fight, then that theory just goes out the window and Wilder becomes the top dog instantaneously. A victory for Wilder would be just absolutely huge.
Yeah, I mean, 2 words, living legend. That's what a win means for Wilder. He's such a sizable underdog. It's so rare to see someone come back from a loss like the one he suffered to Fury and then to beat that same guy. I mean, look, let's go back to before that fight. You know, this is a guy who was champ for 5 years, who tied Muhammad Ali for title defenses and was knocking them out in grand style, despite being outweighed by 20, 30 pounds. Wilder was probably underrated before, but a win here, you know, stamps his ticket into the Hall of Fame. And more important, you got to start talking about where he is on the all-time heavyweight list. He'd be in that conversation. What does a loss mean for Fury?
I think you just mentioned this. I think Fury's on track to become a Hall of Famer based on his perfect record, almost perfect record with the draw, and his convincing victories over Vladimir Klitschko and Wilder. In my mind, at the moment, he's clearly the best of the post-Klitschko era for heavyweights. If he loses this fight, I think he's perceived completely differently. He'll be more like just another good heavyweight, and it would cost him a lot of money too. If he wins, he has lucrative fights with Usyk and Joshua in his future. If he loses, I mean, who knows? Although I think a fight with Joshua is going to happen at some point, no matter what, because there's just so much money on the table for that fight.
Yeah, he always has that fight, I feel like, but yeah, a loss would be, you know, huge
catastrophic
for Tyson Fury. I mean, you know, and his first title defense ever, certainly not a good look. What about Deontay Wilder? What does a loss mean for him?
You know, I don't think it'd be the end of the world for him. He will have consecutive losses to the best heavyweight of the era. He could say legitimately, hey, that guy's special and he has my number. No great shame in that. He can then focus on every other heavyweight in the world pretty much. And if he continues to win, he's going to continue to get big, lucrative opportunities. That's just the way I see it. I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world for him. Of course, I should add this. It depends on how he loses.
Yeah.
If he loses a close fight, if he's competitive and it's a good fight, that would work in his favor. If he's just completely blown out, I think then my scenario would be a little bit more difficult to realize. So I guess we really need to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it depends on how he loses. If he's competitive, the Ruiz fight is still out there for him. A Joshua fight is still there, but he's a few weeks away from his 36th birthday. So, he's certainly on the back nine of his career. Either way, I mean, we can't wait for this fight. We can't wait for this card. Truly one of the best of the year. And with that, that's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Stephen Breadman Edwards for joining us, and we want to thank you for listening. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, be sure to check back in next week when we break this all down all over again right here on the PBC podcast.